Again this year, the Rooks County Health Center Auxiliary Memorial Tree Lighting Service looks a little different. One of the blessings is you can listen and reminisce at your own pace as your loved one's name is read. The act of remembering love shared is always a gift. Sometimes the remembering will bring laughter, sometimes tears, sometimes a warmth of the heart that is comforting. The act of remembering is an opportunity when we take it to be a blessing. The Christmas season creates an opportunity for blessing of many kinds. This time of year is also one of light and color, family and feasts, goodwill and generosity, gifts wrapped in beautiful paper, and gifts of love wrapped in acts of kindness and words of blessing. At this time of year, when blessings and the magic of Christmas are emphasized, the sorrow, the losses, the hardships of life are seemingly felt more keenly. As we gather online to light Rooks County Health Center's Memorial Christmas tree with bulbs that have been purchased in memory of those who have been loved by family, friends, and community. This is an act of blessing, even while we acknowledge the sorrow and loss often associated with the remembering. We gather online for this ceremony to witness the marvel of the names read and the light in the midst of darkness through these Christmas lights. The most meaningful thing that this act is filled with symbolism and truth that goes far beyond this mere lighting of tree lights. Each light represents a person who was and is loved, someone who contributed to the world by their words and deeds, their helpfulness, their participation in their family, community, circle of faith, and neighborhood. Each bulb also represents truth that the light we hold in our hearts never goes out. Even in the darkness of sorrow and loss, the light of love continues to shine as these bulbs shine in the night. Keith Mojo, Grace and Levi Mojo, Al and Georgine Fisher, Gail Mojo, Gary Fisher, Rylan Gear, Doris and Marvin Rachel, James Rachel, Kenneth Tucker, Dorothy Tucker, Albert Voss family, Joseph Doug Kirkman, Ira H. Griffin, Ralph Voss, Nadine Bear, Lois Rimpey, Ruby Rimpey, Laureen Hake, Karen Knuckles, Beverly Hageman, Chuck Hageman, Thomas M. Knuckles, Betty Mai, Ryan Kendricks, Joanna Johnson, Ruby Mosier, Robert and Nellie Captrelli, Harmon Van Dyke, Edith Van Dyke, Keith Harrison, Martha and Dr. William Young, Gerald Staub Sr., Iola Bruder, Betty Staub, Bill Strauss, Jack Turnbull, Myron Bren, George and Lenora Garvert, Herman Sr. and Odella Fellholter, Christopher Fellholter, Herman Fellholter Jr., Rosella and Richard Warner, Catherine and Lloyd Creven, Joanne and Robert Garvert, Gail Roberts, Mary Ramsey, Marianne Warner, Robert Ramsey, Ellen Kleinschmidt, Dorothy and Olin Schmerka, Thelma Knight, Marilyn Simon, Delbert Ostrom, Flo and Marcella Schmidt, Ralph and Catherine Como, Philip Como, Leo Como, Linda Como, Ida and Alphonse Como, David Como, Jim and Zelpha Sis Coolahand, Rosemary Carlene, Karen Kennedy, Margaret Selby, Chick Selby, Ed Weigel, Shirley Weigel, Jane Cherry, Dick Cherry, Harry Moose, Julia Moose, Vera Rudman, Myron Brin, Christopher Fellholter, George Garvert, Lenora Garvert, Odella and Herman Fellholter Sr., Herman Fellholter Jr., Milfred DeYoung, Norma Jean DeYoung, Father James Grennan, Joe and Marthella Brumbaugh, E. Dean and Nita Stewart, Kenny and Ora Bernstead, Troy Jean Mackey, Kristen Rathbun, Roger and Phyllis Stewart, Kent Townley, Betty Denayo, Marvin Denayo, Carol Jo Poor, Cecilia Craig Clem, Daniel Vincent Craig, Dora Michaelis Craig, Roland Jean Craig, Philip Justin Craig, Nancy Lee Peterson, Ryan J. Peterson, A.M. Peterson, Doc Pete, Esther Lead Peterson, Jody Balthasar, Lynn Gross, Marianne Gross, Keith Meitler, Connie Meitler, Michelle Fisher, Melanie Nelson, Dawn Fisher, Andrew Joseph Como, Ralph and Catherine Como, David Como, Ruby Brown, Freddie Reed, Julia Moose, Harry and Alice Moose, Warren Moose, Doug Moose, Harry and Cheryl Moose, Harry and Loretta Parker, Clarence and Virginia Moose, Barb West, Donald Ockenpaw, Lucille Ockenpaw, Paul Rabby, Bonnie Rabby, Jim Page, Jeff Page, Dr. Vale and Pat Page, Rod and Phyllis Stewart, Susie Bowler, Tim Cusson, Mike Stahl, Ron Schrant, Steve Bond, Randy Hutton, Odette Chaput, Charles Campbell, Vera Campbell, Alex Chaput, Louise Chaput, Dana Letcher, Lynn Plant, Herman Fellholter Jr., Floyd and Addie Hawkins, Lula Plant, Bill Plant, Delvin Plant, Roy E. Moraine, Roberta Fry, Timothy Fry, Judy Sander, Evelyn Selby, Linda Collins, Chuck and Joni Arnold, John Collins, Herman Ganung Jr., Vivian Ganung, Cody Ganung, Fred Doppeda, Robert Doppeda, Elaine Doppeda, Howard Phobel, Harry and Dovie Gaunt, Lowell and Florence Gaunt, Ike and Stella Gilland, Lauren Gaunt, Gordon Gaunt, Carolyn Metcalf, Joan and Alan Peshka, Hattie Joe Gilland, Ron Gilland, William Bill Hobaugh, Cora Hobaugh, William Paul Uni, Irene Uni, Richard Uni, Dale and Charlene Roll, Daylene Roll Irwin, Diana Gamble White, Eugene Keeler, Mary Keeler, Stella Gilland, Ike Gilland, Jody Gilbert, Bob Gilbert, Grace Schlegel, Peach Schlegel, Vera Fonenstiel, Bill Fonenstiel, Irma Latham, Dale Latham, Jeannie Llewellyn, Robert Llewellyn, Sandra Frederking, Lawson Julius Ecker, Carl Frederking, Oris Kingery, Tom Frederking, Nadine Bear, George Bear, Jack Meitler, Bonnie Meitler, Diane Nooch, Ellen Kleinschmidt, Leonard Rajas and all our family in heaven, Orrin and Beulah Workman, Louis and Katie Becker, Mildred Schnook, Judy Balthasar, Emmeline Kennedy, Velma Maddie, Angela McNeil, Orville and Mildred Finnessy, Patricia Schultz, Barb and Leo Hammerschmidt, Mark Hammerschmidt, Clarence and Helen Hageman, Kenneth and Dorothy Tucker, Roy and Shirley Haney, Charlie Campbell, Lars and Viola Polson, Christopher Dykus, John Francis Cesar, Stephanie Therese Cesar, Frank John Cesar, Janet Joe Plant, Mary Plant Gershner, Marceline Stahl, Joe Stahl, David Stahl, Jackie Stahl, Mary Stahl, Clara Rempe Bissett, Sister Donata, Mark Hammerschmidt, Mitch Eichmann, Gail Stahl, Dawn A. Wilkerson, Ann Wilkerson, Don E. Wilkerson, Ken Wilkerson, Shane Wilkerson, Doug Carmichael,
Tom Wilkerson, Aston Benedict, Lynette Mills, Ray Ann Schmock, Bernie Schmidt, Benny and Ann Schmidt, Ray Benedict, Gloria Buttons and Alfred J. Reuter, Jeff Reuter, Alfred L. Schmidt, Joe Schmidt, Ken Reuter, Father Al B. Brungart, Mary K. Schmidt, Linda Reuter, Jerry Reuter, Mike Schmidt, Randy Schmidt, Joe Schmidt, Tom Frederking, Scott Teen, Patty Teen, Lester Pruder, Mabel Fruder, Winona Bowman, Lou Bowman, Donald Bowman, Ron Wren, Pat McMullen, Vi Caring, Rita King, Ruby Butler, Ivan and Hazel Butler, Susie Butler, Gary Learock, Sloan Taylor Learock, Marjorie Smith, Victor and Luella Smith, Alice Manwaran, Helen Darnell, Frida Howard, John Workman, Leon Hammerschmidt, William Hanson Jr., Alfred Fisher, Georgine Fisher, William Hanson, Maurice Hanson, Barrett H. Van Dyke, June L. Van Dyke, Paul F. Van Dyke, John W. Van Dyke, Wanda and Warren Chesney, Kent and Sue Chesney, Paul Bowman, Dawn Bowman, Wynuna Bowman, Linda Collins, John Collins, Mary Alcala, Lee Sarasaris, Lalo Sarasaris, Albert and Rosie Hamel, Louis and Pauline Bobeck, Mary Lou Hamel, Stephanie Hamel, William Bobeck, Elizabeth and Eugene Hamel, Kayleen Hamel, Danny Lamb, Verlin Alphen, Frida Alphen, Dawn Hamel, R.C. and Dorlyn Amos, Delmer and Virgie Carmichael, Dawn Amos, Matt Amos, Doug Carmichael, Odd and Betty Vanskyver, Jerry and Betty Staub, Todd Vanskyver, Robert Bob Davis, Russell Paul Davis, Richard Davis, Robert and Myrtle Davis, Paul Davis, Donald Walls, Donald and Alice Rodenbaugh, Joey Rodenbaugh, Grandpa and Grandma Markley, Shirley True, Francis and Ruth Waits, Dan and Helen Kelson, Wilbur and Pearl Jurgensen, Gerald Jurgensen, Jean Brodigan, Fred and Amy Walls, Samuel and Joyce Amore, Amanda Herzog, Roy and Joanne Johnson, Granny Lazarus, Grandma Johnson, Stanley Sakata, Dawn Ingram, Great-Grandpa and Great-Grandma Chapel, Everett and Rose Waltz, Eldon and Arlene Waltz, Jim and Marion Jurgensen, Jim Jerose, Lee Miller, Ida Miller, Raymond Ganung, Herman O. Ganung, Mary Ganung, Bill Miller, Jean Miller, Don Ganung, Michelle Burleson, Kelly Hamel, Art and Stella Hamel, Lloyd and Joe Beal, Kyle Hamel, Marvin Criley, Ernest Knipp, Nathan Knipp, Dustin Lichner, Merle Sneathen, deceased members of the Unrun family, deceased members of the Reuter family, Alan McClure, Barbara Crow, Francis Unrein, Bernice Unrein, Lucy Gilliland, Shirley Beaker, Joe B. Beaker, Tom Beaker, Steve Beaker, Creta Hilgers, Carl Hilgers, Paul Hilgers, Daniel E. Nottingham, Marjorie Nottingham, Elizabeth McReynolds, Marvin D. McReynolds, Dean and Patricia Sinclair, Mike Sinclair, Alma and Lester Stewart, Francis and Mary Rollo, Keith Rollo, Melvin and Annette Reuter, Wilbur and Donna Rollo, Evelyn Mead, James and Juanita Casey, Wanda and Warren Chesney, Kent and Sue Chesney, Grandpa Herb, Maverick Warner, Carol Anderson, Raleigh Anderson, Corrine Harrison, Martha Colbreth, Edward Carleen, Anita Carleen, Don Maestro, June Sanchez, Mike Sinclair, Flossie Vos, Orrin Marcotte, Herman Fellholzer Jr., Pat Myers, Judy Peavy, Harlan Lill, Brandon Deichner, Lyle Dunning, Phyllis Van Hoos, Eldon Williams, Gola Williams, Edna Haffert, Art Wilkins, Janet Dombrowski, Jeannie Bellarive, Bill Wilson, Mark Green, Tom Frederking, Morris and Goldie Vervica, Emma and Emery Stamper, Paul Van Dyke, John Van Dyke, Harold C. Mock, M.D., Robert and Joetta McClellan, Tim Marcotte, Louise Andreessen, Marie Myers, Bob and Arlene Rogers, William B. Mills, Nadine Harnett, Mike Mills, Lynette Mills, Aaron Rogers, Keith Griffin, Whitey and Retta Griffin Kopsick, Vernon Sutter, Dave Sutter, Greg Sutter, Stan Sutter, Lesta Sutter, Joan Green, Barbara Morris, Ann and Don Wilkerson, Tom Wilkerson, Ken Wilkerson, Dawn A. Wilkerson, Glenadine and Lauren Wagner, Grace Fearborn, Rosella Warner, Sam Herbal, Lenora Garbert, Steve Axelson, Phyllis Banhus, Maverick Warner, Ron Warner, Sharon Stahl, Melissa Missy Finnessy, Jack Bennett, Iva Lee Bennett, Don Yoxel, Norma Yoxel, Darcy Wilson, Bob and Valeria Thomas, Lita Boucher, LaDonna Snyder, Gil Alexander, Harold C. Mock, M.D., Ernie Tribble, Gary W. Henson, Lloyd E. and Catherine M. Craven, Marjorie and William A. Voss, D. Latham, Mary Rogers, Raymond Rogers, Dolores Hackett, Wayne Hackett,
Maxine Bates, Dolores and Wayne Hackett, Mary and Raymond Rogers, Earl and Shirley Muir, Ray Criley, Elaine Maddie, John Griebel, Eva Griebel, Merle Griebel, George Wickland, Karen Wickland, Marianne Peasley, Linda Waddell, Dr. Bill Vitopka, Phyllis Vitopka, Harold C. Mock, M.D., Rosalie Folsom, Lyle Folsom, Lorene Fazell, Wayne Fazell, Kenny Brown, Viola Brown, Barbara West, Greg Brown, Josh Raby, Roger Mojo, Wynn Peavy,
Judy Peavy, Joanne Martin, Robert Bob Martin, Bethel Maddox, Robert Bob Maddox, Tom Brown, Jessica Brown.
We hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for listening and remembering with us.